Stare like Stone Cold with a few beers. Play the game, I end the game. I'm champion, I'm Triple H. Undertaker, I'm your maker. Bury the brother like Kane. Ooh, 1-3, hit the tombstone, hit the choke slam on face. Ooh, yeah, like a macho heel, tell like I'm muscle. If you suck with like tomatoes, I'ma keep a couple models. Ooh, and you may call me HBK. When I'm tuning up the vein, you best be getting in my way. Ooh, yeah, I'm degenerate, I love it, yes, I love it. If you wait down with that, then I got 2 words for you, suck it. Too sweet, put your fangs up. Too sweet, too sweet.
Welcome everyone to your longest running Australian wrestling podcast, Wrestle Radio Australia. I'm your host, Todd Eastman. Thank you so much for joining us this week. We have a big show lined up. What was originally going to be like what I normally do is like, because I normally do, if I do a watch along, which is what I'm doing this week with Gavin McGavin, our guest. Normally I would do the watch along at the end of this episode sort of thing, but I thought I might do something different tonight. So what you'll see tonight is the normal interview we do. So it's just going to be a normal Wrestle Radio Australia episode. And then on Friday, you'll see the match from Pro Wrestling Darwin, David Storm and Gavin McGavin with myself and Gavin talking over the match. And that's I just got off from recording that with him, and it's quite a tale you hear during that match. So I can't wait for you guys to see it. That will be going up, of course, on Friday. Today, we have just the interview, and it's a great interview with Gavin. We go through a lot of stuff that I guess that it was never, we didn't plan any of this sort of things. Like I asked him on the show, he goes, "Oh, what do you want to talk about?" I said, "I don't know. We'll just have a chat." Because oftentimes I find we get better shows. Well, you don't get better shows, but you get a great talk out of something where you don't really plan it. You just have a rough idea where you're going to go with sort of things. And that's what this is. So we talk a lot about tag team wrestling, a lot about the training of tag team wrestlers, a lot about promos, a lot about psychology of match. This is a whole well-rounded conversation with Gavin. And it's one of the ones that he said to me off air, he rarely does. He rarely talks behind the scenes of wrestling. So it's good to see. It's good for you guys. You'll see a good insight of the thinking of Gavin McGavin, who is no doubt one of the best wrestlers out of EPW Perth. So we're going to head to that straight after this. This is Views from the East right here on Wrestle Radio Australia. This Views from the East is one that's I'm just going to talk from my heart, because it's something that I talked about it when it first happened, and then last year when the sort of the first anniversary of it happening, I wasn't in the right frame. This show wasn't sort of going because I'd sort of gone on a break because of certain things, and so I wasn't able to do it. But this year I was able to do it, and hopefully I'm not going to cry like a baby like I did during the first time. Not that it's a bad thing, but like Brody Marshall says, I have Ric Flair-itis, where it doesn't take much to make me cry. I can be somewhat of a big baby when it comes to that sort of thing. So I'm just going to sort of say this just as quickly and as precisely as I can, because I just want to get it out and get it off my chest, so to speak. And that is, it has been 2 years now that my podfather, the guy that started Wrestle Radio Australia with myself, Josh Armour, passed away. And I just want to again, like I did an episode back when it first happened, saying thank you, Josh Armour. And I just want to say again, like, to the guy, because I know he's up there watching what I do every week and probably critiquing my audio, saying it's not good enough, because that's what Josh did. I just want to say again, thank you. Josh was a guy that that was so passionate a fan of wrestling in everything he did. In everything he did, really, he put his whole heart into, and it's something that looking back, I so admire in the guy. Like, I wish I could have called matches with as much passion as what he did when he was commentating on matches at RCW. And he put that same passion into when he started Wrestle Radio Australia first as Wrestle Hustle Radio, and sort of like asked me if I wanted to be a part of it. And I just used to do little views from the East sort of things like this, where I just rail on something I didn't like in wrestling or something I did like in wrestling. It was more not something I didn't like, because that's the way I am at times. But he's the one that learnt all the stuff behind the scenes. He was the audio nerd, as I used to call him. So you're the audio nerd. You can work that out, can't you? But he's the one who sparked my love of doing this, originally in like podcast form, and that's like, it is also still a podcast, but doing it here on videos, I know is something that he would have loved to have done and to have been doing. So I'm going to continue to keep trying to do, and every show, if you guys watch this on YouTube and watch it to the end, every show there is a dedication to Josh, and that will stay, and that will forever stay. And this will forever not just be my show, it will always be mine and Josh's show. And for that, I just want to thank him. And just for you guys out there, if there's something you're passionate about, go for it, because you never know if it can be something that you really do love. Like, I didn't know I would really love this. I just liked having a chat to my mates, having a chat to people around the country, talking wrestling, talking all of that sort of stuff. And Josh learned all this. Like, I've had to learn all of this stuff. He almost forced me to learn it, because I was just like, oh, we did it now, you can enjoy this. And he goes, oh, well, do you want to try and do it this week? And I sort of had to teach myself how to do this sort of stuff. And it's opened up whole new worlds for me. And if anything, it's probably helped in the wrestling side of my career, because it's helped me talk more, taught me how to, I guess, self-promo and that sort of thing. So yeah, I just really want to thank him for everything he did for me, for everything he did for Australian wrestling before he passed. He'll never know how much he'll never know how much he did for Australian wrestling, or how much people appreciated what he did for Australian wrestling before he passed, unfortunately. So I'm just going to try and keep his memory alive as much as I can in these shows, over as long as we do these shows. So that is it for this Views from the East. That's my opinion, and you're entitled to it. And once again, thank you, Josh. We'll be back after this with Gavin McGavin. I almost forgot to do the throw. That's Red Australia.
Are you ready to riot?
The main reason I started doing it was to promote wrestling in Australia, and if we keep doing that, that's great. But it's also a place for these wrestlers and these commentators and photographers on. I feel like we're doing our bit by getting it out there to those people who still think the only way they can see wrestling here is once a year when they come to the entertainment centre, you know, and they see John Cena. Like, it's amazing how many people have no idea. So that we can do that and also give these talents just a platform to tell their stories, to have a laugh. You know, it's just, I always loved radio when I was a kid. I really just want more people to hear it.
I am joined by the wrestler's wrestler in EPW, Gavin McGavin. How are you tonight, mate?
I'm good, thanks, mate. How are you?
I'm very good, very good. It's a bit a bit cold up this way. You wouldn't believe it being up in Brisbane the way I am, but it's been a bit chilly the last couple of nights. It's like I've had to actually crank out the oldest jumpers I have apparently, and to be able to wear them.
Yeah, it's starting to get that way a bit here, but it's still a bit weird that it's getting to mid to late May, but it still feels very much like summer and spring most days. So I'm not sure if winter's actually going to come to Perth this year.
Well, we got down to, was it 3 last night? And for that up here, that's fucking cold.
Yeah. That's unheard of. A lot of my family is from Queensland. Both my parents were born there, and I lived there for probably 6 months or so when I was younger. I don't ever remember having to wear a jumper.
No, I remember when I first moved up here. This is great content for the pod. When I first moved up here, I had 100 hoodies because I'm from Adelaide, and I think the first season went by, I wore maybe one because it was just so. But I think sort of.
Yeah, my childhood was I was born in Darwin, spent 6 years there. Spent 4 years there, then went to Thailand for 2 years, and then came back to Queensland for 6 months. So by the time I got to Perth, which I think was around about winter, that was probably the first time I even, wore a shirt outside of school because I was just so used to being in hot, muggy climates all the time.
Yeah. Well, because it's you sort of cover the whole gambit of the tropics, really, didn't you?
100%, yeah.
First things first, how's the hand?
It's coming along. I had to do a few things at training the other day just to make sure that it's going to be okay for this weekend coming. We've got a showcase. So it's still sore. This is kind of more precaution these days, just to make sure that I don't damage any further in my match on the weekend, and then I should be all good to go for Evolution, which is June 12th.
That's has anything been announced yet match wise for you? Because I know you're after Marcus Pitt, but who knows?
Yeah, I'd like a match with Marcus Pitt. Nothing's been announced yet, so I guess maybe I'm just being a bit presumptuous and assuming that I'm booked June 12th. But hopefully they've got something for me. But I'll definitely make sure that I'm physically fit for it, so that way my hand is up for selection.
So how's it been over there? I talked to Davis Storm not too long ago. You've had snap lockdowns. You've had. How's the morale going with training and everything at the schools? Because I know you're a big part of the EPW school. Is everybody still like no one's on the sort of the tenterhooks? They're all just raring to go and into it.
I think the little snap lockdown not too long ago put a little bit of a scare in the camp, because we sort of resigned ourselves to the fact last year that we weren't going to be doing a lot of wrestling. It was a long period of time with no events whatsoever. And then it looked like we were getting back to normal. We announced, okay, we've got the EPW show, we've got the Schwa show, we've got the showcase, we've got all these events coming up. And then snap lockdown kind of put those in jeopardy. But luckily, we managed to pull together as a community and get through that pretty quick and easy. So now we can start to get the ball rolling. We're at the stage now where I think we're allowed 70% capacity at gate 1. So we're getting back to feeling normal there. The snag that we've hit with our showcases, which is a real pain, because when we first started doing those, we were drawing crowds of 100 plus to our training facility, literally cramming them. You had to open the roller door, just as many as we could fit in. But because it's not a fixed seating venue, it's a venue where we put chairs out, the 70% rule doesn't apply. The 2 square meter rule applies. So that means that there are 72 people allowed in the building. And that includes the wrestlers and the referees and the announcers. So between the wrestlers and the cameramen and that sort of stuff, and the person working the front door, there's about 30 people. So we're down to a crowd of about 40. And that's why we sold out the tickets for the showcase in 20 minutes the other day, because we couldn't put that many up for sale. And the members with EPW get first dibs of tickets as well. So when they finally go, all right, 100% everything, then all of a sudden our trainees can, have their first matches in front of 100 people instead of in front of 30, which would be nice.
Well, I know. I think Riot City got around that a little bit because they built bleachers in their training. I don't know if have you been to the new school?
I've been there.
It's sort of big enough now that they could have done that. At the old school, there was no way we could have done that.
I'm trying to remember which school they're at now. I've definitely been to the one where as you walk in the front door, you go through the gym.
Yeah, that's
where they've got a really nice gym set up. Go out to the back, and then they've got the title belts painted on the wall. I've been to that one, but I don't I think they were talking to me about the idea about building bleachers, but I don't think they've actually made them yet. But yeah, that's awesome. And I've seen that in a few places. Obviously, PCW's got their tiered seating set up in there. And I think the Hoos for Newey Pro as well, they've got some bleachers that they can pull out. And it makes for a better viewing experience for the crowd as well, having that elevated seating. And it makes it feel really packed and full. And it's a good idea. It's something that we'll probably look at over here. If we stay in the buildings that we're in. I'm not sure how long we got left on the lease. So we've got the 2 facilities that we're running. So there's always an option of whether or not we amalgamate and get one really big one, or if we continue to run both north and south of the river.
But then, I mean, having the north and south one, that's got to be so convenient for your students. Because I mean, especially speaking from like living up here in Brisbane, it's so hard to get, if you've got a group where your roster is spread out around the state, or the not the state so much, but the town, it is so hard to get somewhere that is central that wouldn't cost a bucket. So you've got to go to either like north, south, east, or west, and then there's always someone who's traveling a shitload of distance just to get to schools, which, I mean, that's what you have to do. That's when I first started at Riot City, we're out on the north side of town, and I lived on the south side of town. I worked at the north side of town, but I virtually had to drive home, get changed, and then drive that equal distance back out to training. So, I mean, to have your 2 facilities where people can go, and even if they're like, oh, shit, I've got to work in this place this week. Oh, I'm close to that school. That's fine. I can just go to that school for the week.
Yeah, exactly. We have a lot of benefit with that, because I think between our furthest south trainee and furthest north where they live, there's probably an hour and 45 between the 2 of them, and the 2 schools sort of sit in between in that. And the other benefit of having the 2 schools is that on Monday nights when I'm running beginner class north, there's an intermediate class running south. So no matter what level you're at, there's a night going for you. So it's never beginner both nights on Monday, because you can't attend both. So you can go beginner on Monday north, and then go beginner Tuesday south, and go beginner Wednesday north. And then you can train pretty much 7 days a week, just about, because 2 of the sessions that I run a chain gang on Friday night, which is literally just chain wrestling hold submissions and hold for hold. And that's open to any level. And then Sundays is a tag team specialty session that I run as well, which again is open to all levels. So between those, no matter what level you're at, you basically got access to 7 days worth of training if you want to travel between the 2 schools. And your fees don't change. You pay a weekly fee. It's kind of like a gym membership. If you go there 3 days a week, you get your money's worth. If you go there once every 2 weeks, you don't. You still pay the money though.
Tell me about this tag team training, because that's awesome. I've never heard of a place doing, like, I've heard of a lot of places that do like your promo nights and your intermittent rookie, blah blah. Haven't really ever heard of them saying like a sort of a set day a week where this is what we do, this is our tag team. So if you want to learn to be a tag team wrestler, this is where you want to train, sort of thing. Tell me what is involved in that.
So it came about because I was sort of looking at our roster, and a few of our tag teams had stepped away, and we were lacking tag teams. And just in having a chat with some of the guys that were coming up and looking to break into spots, they were all on their own in singles. And if you look at our roster, if you're trying to break in and become a singles wrestler, then all of a sudden you're fighting Marcus Pitt, Damian Slater, Julian Ward, David Storm, myself, all these people. You're trying to fight them for a spot on the card. Whereas if you're a tag team wrestler, you've got a better in. And plus, I just think tag team wrestling is absolutely fantastic. And it's a great way to learn the business with someone else. And it also adds something really, really different. But a lot of them were hesitant to do it. And I kind of looked at our training curriculum, and it's really geared to training you to be a singles wrestler. Like, all the skills you learn as a singles wrestler, you still use, your agility and your bumping and your execution and movement and that sort of thing. But there was nothing that was focusing specifically on how to be a tag team. Because one of my biggest gripes when I watch tag team wrestling is that it's 2 singles matches happening simultaneously. There's nothing that actually makes it different between tag wrestling, between that and a singles match. Like, if I watch a tag match and it's 3 minutes before the first tag happened, I'm like, well, how's that any different than the singles match that I've been watching? It's a tag match, which makes it a gimmick match, and the gimmick is that you tag in and out. That's the whole point of the match. It'd be like being in a ladder match and not using the ladders. It's pointless. So the onus behind it was that we get in there and I just try and make everything that we do a two-person thing. So we normally do our cardio and warm-ups. I do a lot of cardio warm-ups where, you know, you pick someone up from a fireman's carry, drop them down, and they pick you up and whatnot. So when we do that sort of thing, we're doing team lifts to practice that timing and communication of lifting someone up together, putting them down safely together. We will do a lot of cardio drills where there's the crisscross running, so they learn each other's timing and those sort of things. We'll work on ways to fluidly tag your tag partner in and not have to be waiting there for him to go on to the next move. Just something as simple as if you pick your opponent up off the mat, put them on the rope, and then tag your teammate in, you've got to wait a few seconds for him to get in the rope and then come and double whip that guy. If I just put a hand on him, tag you, and while you're getting in, I pick the guy up, by the time I'm ready, you're ready, and we've shaved a couple of seconds off the match, and you just get that fluidity going. And so it was everything from that to working on tag team maneuvers, because it's a whole different skill set. And unless, you know, you do your normal training session, all right, we're going to finish off with matches. We've got too many. You guys do a tag match. No one's really getting taught how to be a tag team. So that was really the onus on it. And Mikey Nichols has actually put his hand up, obviously being a very experienced tag team wrestler.
Yeah, I've heard he's done some things.
Yeah, he's going to be coming down in some future Sundays and lending his expertise as well to help us out, because there's just a whole different psychology that comes to it. And I spent a lot of time as a tag team wrestler, and I really, really love it as an art form. So I just want to make sure that people are being trained in all facets of the game. And I think tag team wrestling in particular has become huge in Australia at the moment. So there's a market for it. So I just want to make sure that they're getting a breadth of knowledge when it comes to the curriculum that we're teaching.
Yeah, you're right that your philosophy is exactly sort of what I always say. When you're looking to come into a territory or break into somewhere, I would always look for something that they don't have and go for that. Because like if you haven't got enough faces, I'm a baby face now. If you haven't got enough heels, I'll be a heel. If you haven't got enough tag teams, I'll be a tag team wrestler. I've always, but then again, like even when I started training back in the day for Riot City, I just wanted to be a tag team wrestler. I never wanted to be a singles guy. My favorite wrestler is Arn Anderson. So like I always wanted to be a tag team wrestler. So that's the thing that always, and because I love the different psychology that is in tag team wrestling as opposed to your singles. There's so much more I feel you can do because you got four people, you got five if you count the ref.
Sure.
In a tag team. And there's so many different spots and different things you can do that will make you stand out. And it doesn't have to be amazing flips and all that, though they are awesome and they are good, you can do it. But if you can do something just as simple as being able to distract a ref with the opponent and then do a double team move just to get some heat, that to me, that's beautiful. I love that. I love that part of tag team wrestling.
Yeah, I think the best way I had it described to me was that in a singles match, you can paint a beautiful, intricate black and white painting because you've got black and you've got white. When you're a tag match, you're adding some extra shades, and so now you can really add that depth and extra emotion to it. There's so much extra that you can do. And it's just a wasted opportunity if you're doing things that, you know, there's always going to be moments in the match where it just boils down to two people. But I made a rule when I was tagging with Mike Massive. I said every single time we tag each other, we're going to do some sort of double team before one of us leaves the ring. That's just because every other match has singles moves. So I don't think I ever hit it, with the exception of maybe a clothesline or a drop kick here or there. I don't think I ever hit a singles move in any of my tag matches because there's a bunch of matches before me on the card that are doing that. None of them can hit tag moves. So they're all completely open to me. So, you know, there's sometimes people have dibs lists for shows and that sort of stuff or whatnot, or there's a kind of a shit list where people are doing too much on the show that, we've seen, you know, 15 Canadian destroyers, we've seen 16 super kicks. Well, you haven't seen any double suplexes because no one else is doing them. So we'll take that from you. So you're just so much more that opens up to you. And it's just a matter of being a little bit creative with the way that you think about it. But yeah, I mean, I grew up, I first became a fan of wrestling was probably 1987, 1988. And then all through that in the early 90s, you know, the British Bulldogs and the Hart Foundation and Demolition and the Rockers and Orient Express tag teams were so plentiful. and they all worked beautifully as tag teams. And that's what I want to see happen in the tag team division across Australia. And we've got some amazing tag teams in the country at the moment.
That's what I mean. Like, one of the most underrated tag team matches, I think, is Rockers Orient Express. I think it was 91 or 92 Rumble. They opened it.
Yep.
That is a beautiful tag team match. And for people that,
Amazing.
if you're at home and you've got the network, go and check that match out, because it tells that's what tag team wrestling is. They work as a team. And I find too that, like, is it something that you teach for the guys that are on the outside to still be active in the match?
100%. 100%.
I know it annoys me when I'm seeing more on the babyface than the heel. When I'm seeing a babyface guy and he's just sort of watching his guy get his ass kicked, you're like, what are you doing? Get into it. Like, I can't yell it across the ring because I'm the manager, but in my head, I'm like, will you fire up a little bit, please?
100%. Being the supporting cast it's such an extra. It's an extra. Adds so much to a match. I went backstage and told everyone in the locker room at Reawakening the match was Mikey Nichols versus the Don in the main event, and I told them to go back and watch the match 3 times. And I said, watch it for the way Mike worked heel, watch it for the way Don worked face, and then watch it for the way Slater worked to the outside on the apron, because he added so much to that match. He was so invested in the outcome of that match, so that told everyone else that they should be invested too. There's a fine art to it, and the way I describe it to my students is it's almost kind of like, when you go and you watch a play or a musical and they get to that epic moment where 2 main characters go to separate sides of the stage, and then the spotlight goes off, spotlight goes on this person, and they sing their part of the song, and then it goes down, and then they sing their part, and then if they're both doing it at the same time, you don't kind of know where to look. So if the guy on the outside is going too crazy while you're trying to have something focused on in the ring, then it gets missed. But, boom, double down, nothing's happening. That could be boring unless the people on the outside are now adding the emotion. There should never be a dull moment, because there's always someone that can be active. There's always someone that can be doing something. The crowd's going to take the lead from you. If you're just bored and you don't care, if you don't react to your teammate being pinned, no matter how early it is, I see people get knocked down and pinned, and their tag team partner just watches and like, oh, he's going to kick out of that one. But what if he doesn't? You lose.
Yeah.
That's something that I do talk about a lot. Being active on the apron is super, super important. I mean, we've all seen the video of Taker going absolutely mental on the side apron and whatnot. But it's a huge important part. Jannetty is a fantastic one to watch through. He makes sure that by the time that tag comes for him, the crowd is absolutely baying for blood. They are ready for that hot tag, unlike anything else. And it's because of the work he does on the apron. It's the beautiful thing about either having a manager or a valet or an assistant or a tag team partner. You've got your own personal cheerleader in the corner. And that person should know when to be that cheerleader and when to not. It's something that I even train when we do the drills. I'm really peeling the curtain back here, but I'll talk about how too often guys will plan their matches and then they'll go off to their separate places, and they won't. Okay, you're taking the heat, so I'm going to go off here and you tell me what the hot tag is, and they don't know what their tag partner's hope spots are going to be. So they'll start slow claps in points where they're not going to get paid off. So then the crowd went, oh, well, I clapped for him and it didn't work that time, so I'm not going to do it anymore. Whereas if you know that, okay, in about 30 seconds time, if the crowd claps, they're going to get a good return on this, that's where you should put it. So it's being smart about when you do stuff on the apron. You don't need to be doing it the whole time, because otherwise you're just going to be an annoyance and you're going to be a distraction. But it's about knowing when to pick your moments to add to the match. Not add to you, add to the match.
I sort of take that as when I manage, I sort of take that as well, where like if my guy is getting heat, I'll sell every bump he's taking. I'll sell it as well. Like, oh, please get up. Oh, geez. Like if my guy's getting, say you'd be on the top rope ready to drop kick the guy and Jake's getting up facing me, I'm like, don't turn around. Dude, don't turn around.
It's just being honest to the moment. I mean, when we go out there, we need to be as honest to the moment as we possibly can. And I say to them, that person in the ring, that's either is your tag partner. So is it your best friend? Or is it your brother? Is it your sister? Is it your romantic partner? Whoever this person is very important in your life, and you're watching them getting punched and kicked and stomped. You should care about that. You wouldn't, if you're out with your mates in the nightclub and you saw a bloke punching on him, you wouldn't just go, oh, he'll come and get me if he needs me. Like you would react to that. You would try and get in there, and you'd be doing everything you can to be a part of that. So it's just being real in the moment and giving honesty to the moment. You need to as real as you possibly can be.
There is also one mate that you're like, well, he had that coming. I mean, he'll be fine.
yeah.
So it's great that you're sort of giving back, because you sort of, I don't want to say you graduated, but you sort of moved on to singles. Is it sort of like a thing where you'd love to go back to that one day, or is it sort of
100%? Yeah, definitely. I think I'll, hopefully I'll have plenty of years left still in the tank. I mean, I'm getting a bit too close to 40 now, but I'm hoping that I can do this for at least another 10 years. But yeah, I definitely, before my time is done, I want another good tag run for certain. I feel like there's still stuff left undone. I feel like there's a lot I can add to a tag team. And I also think that it's a really good way that if I take someone young under my wing, be a really good kind of apprenticeship, I guess. I mean, because I had that when I first came in. I had Ferguson Block, who was an EPW original. I tagged with him, not a lot of times, but I got a heap out of it. And then I was looking through my old match list, because I'd write down every single match I ever had. And I had looked through, and apparently I had some 6-man tag at a Malaga market show where I was teaming with David Storm and Mikey Nichols.
Oh, wow.
I think it was about 2 years in, and I had no recollection of it whatsoever. Absolutely no. I remember having a match against Mike and Shane and Tyler Jacobs at a house show. I remember that because I remember getting chopped by Mikey. So just it's something that happens with the young guys a lot. They get thrown in sort of random tag matches so they can learn from the more experienced guy. Whereas, when my time comes, when I'm probably, I don't know whether it's the cardio or whatnot, the body doesn't really want to be able to do or can't do the full singles matches. I'll, have a look down at the school, see who's coming up and see who I can, help bring up to that next level through tag team wrestling.
Yeah, how good are you at taking heat, kid? Good. Here you go.
Yeah, exactly. I've served my time for that. When I spent, 4 years in a tag team with a guy who was 170 kilos, he wasn't going to be doing he wasn't going to be taking many of the heats, put it that way.
No, that had to be a thing where you started like talking about the match and straight away you're just like, and I'll take the heat.
Yep. Well, again, that's the reality of the situation, the reality of the moment. If I was in a fight against me and Mike Massive, I know who I'd want to single out and try and beat down. I'd be focusing on the little guy for sure.
Yeah.
The smallest guy on the roster and the biggest guy on the roster.
How hard was it for when you sort of broke out of that tag team to almost break out of the little guy stigma? Do you know what I mean? Because it was always like, It was like McMassive, like big, massive, little McGavin. And when you sort of broke out of it, because I like seeing photos of you back then and seeing photos of you now, it's almost hard to see as the same person. Do you know what I mean? Because you've changed your look, Was it a change of look straight away, or was it sort of something you sort
instantly,
of... Yeah?
I wanted to make sure that it was a very clear cut. This is a different person. Well, not different person, but this is a different side of this person. I made a very strong conscious decision when I first started wrestling to put as much excess crap into my presentation as possible. And I did exactly what you talked about. I looked at what there wasn't on the card. So I had to look at everyone else's attire and I went, right, no one's wearing yellow, I'm going to wear yellow. No one's wearing a wrestling singlet, I'm going to wear that. Everyone's wearing boots or kick pads, so I'm going to wear amateurs. No one's got anything here, so I'm going to wear headgear. At the time, no one had a beard, so I'm going to grow a big beard. And I just went, I've got all this stuff now. And then if I just take all that away and change nothing else, I'll be viewed very, very differently. And of all the people for me to get that from, I learned that lesson watching the Miz evolve, because the Miz had the long baggy shorts and the stupid hat with his mohawk coming out of it and the gloves and the chick magnet shirt. and all that stuff. And then I think he did some angle where he got fired. And then a couple of weeks later, he wrestled as Captain Canada or something under a mask. And he was just wearing trunks, kick pads, and the mask. And he ripped it off. And everyone went, oh, new look Miz, new Miz. And he didn't change a single move. He didn't change a catchphrase. But a few years later, he was main eventing WrestleMania as the WWE champion. I dare say that Miz would not have been main eventing WrestleMania in the chick magnet t-shirt and the sleeves and the long shorts. I mean, Cena wears the long shorts, yeah, but I wanted to have enough stuff that I could take away to strip it down to the bare bones of what I was, a real wrestler. This current iteration, the way that I look now, when I first started training, this is the presentation I wanted. But I knew that there was no point in me debuting in my main eventer appearance because I'm not going to be at that level yet. I mean, if I had have come out looking exactly like I look now, it was going to be an uphill battle trying to show any evolution of my character. So I really wanted to make sure that I gave myself somewhere to go, because I grew up, long tights and boots. Love it. Just quintessentially wrestling for me. That's always what I wanted to do. But I was 7 or 8 years into my career before I bought my first pair of wrestling boots because it didn't make sense for what I was doing at that time. And yeah, just by changing my gear up, the way that I dressed with the headgear and the beard and covering up my body and having the long socks and the goofy little shoes and just the way I would hold myself, I accentuated how small I was, because I am literally the smallest roster member ever outside of a few of the girls who's been in EPW. The smallest. I'm definitely the smallest EPW champion in history. So now I might as well play into that. That's part of me. That's who I am. Whereas now, through my presentation, the way that I hold myself, a big thing that I get now when I meet a lot of people in person is, oh, you're much smaller than I thought you were. And I learned that from David Storm, because David Storm's not a huge guy, but he carries himself like he is. And if you carry yourself and present yourself in the right way, then you can definitely be seen differently. So I didn't change. I did change my moveset, and definitely my the way that I interacted with the crowd changed a lot. But I needed to make sure that they knew they were going to be getting something different from me the second I stepped foot through the curtain. And that came down to presentation. I just changed everything. Got rid of the beard, changed the gear. About the only thing that stayed the same between the two was the color scheme, the yellow and black. That was it. The rest was completely changed, to the point where someone came up to me 3 shows in and goes, "Oh, I only just now realized that you were that shoot fighter guy." Because they just did not, they didn't know it was the same guy, even though I had the same name, which is a pretty, not a very common name, Gavin McGavin. But yeah, some people they didn't realize it was me at all. So that was kind of achieved the goal, I guess.
And like you said, you don't, and I think a lot of people make that, not mistake, but they make that thing where, like, when you turn from heel to face or face to heel, you change your moveset as well, where you don't have to. If you can change your look or change your mannerisms, your moveset can stay the exact same. It's half the reason it's why people have cheered you from being a heel or face, because they liked your moveset. So why would you change that? Like Stone Cold Steve Austin never changed. He was the same dude, moveset to everything, the whole way through. The only thing that changed was like the way he either reacted to the crowd or the crowd reacted to him.
Yeah, it's everyone, when you start training, we get told by the old guys in the locker room, oh, the moves don't matter. And it's to a large degree that's true. I mean, the most success I had is when I really scaled sort of the difficulty of my move set back, and just made things count and made it matter. But yeah, you don't need to change absolutely everything about you, because then it becomes a bit unrealistic. I mean, if this person, there's no semblance of what this person used to be, that doesn't really happen. People don't completely change their personality and their look and what they do. They just go through changes in, I guess, value systems. So what I valued as a person, as the shoot fighter, was different to what I valued as a person, as the real wrestler. So it's just, again, that reality of the moment. It needs to be a believable jump. Whereas if you change everything wholesale, well, now you've got to start completely from scratch. So all the buy-in that you had from anyone, they've lost, because everything that they liked or hated about you is now gone. So now you've got to try and get everything over again. So yeah, I've seen it done before where people have changed everything and it's worked okay, because usually in that case, it's because whatever they're doing before wasn't working. But I've also seen where people are like, oh, I feel like I need to change everything up, and they changed it all and it sort of sank. So yeah, I mean, you're dead right. There are some people that wrestle exactly the same, no matter what side of the fence they sit on. Bret Hart does not change at all. Bret Hart's, the way he wrestles is exactly the same. The facial expressions change a little bit. Whereas the difference between a Shawn Michaels heel and a Shawn Michaels face is day and night. They almost look like two wrestlers. Still the same moves, but the way that he carries himself and that he bumps and he sells and the way that he portrays himself is completely different.
How long did it take you to sort of realize not so much less is more, but you don't have to do everything to still be effective?
That's a one that I'm still learning. It can be hard, particularly, because wrestling is fun and doing cool moves is fun. And particularly in Australia, particularly these days, like last year, I think I had 9 matches for the year. I think I've had 3 matches this year. When you're wrestling every single weekend, you can get the wrestling bug out of your system. But when you have a match once every 3 months, you want to go out there and you want to do all the stuff that's fun and whatnot. I just enjoy doing this. But I think it really cemented in my mind when I turned into the real wrestler, because again, I looked at what wasn't being done, and there's basically a set of what we call the basic 10 that we train and we teach rookies at our school, and they've got to master those before we'll teach them any other moves. So it's simple stuff like DDT, neck breaker, back breaker, suplex, back suplex, sidewalk slam, side Russian, back breaker. So basically, when I was a rookie, this got taught to me, and I thought that it was some magical list that had been passed down from the wrestling gods, and every single wrestler in the world got taught the basic 10. That's what I thought. So we always talked about the basic 10 and EPW, the basic 10 and EPW. And then when I went off and did my first couple of interstate bookings, I'd say, oh yeah, I mainly just do the basic 10. They'd look at me going, what on earth are you talking about? And that's when I realized that the basic 10 was basically, well, it was something that David Storm just made up, and went, well, I think if we teach these 10, and his reasoning was, it was pretty solid. Of those moves, if you can give and take all those moves, every other move is basically just a variation of it, just a little tweak on it. So if you've got those moves, you can have a wrestling match. You don't need anything else. And I had a look, and just things like, no one was doing a DDT because everyone was doing a tornado DDT or a satellite DDT or some fancy variation of a DDT or a hammerlock DDT. No one was just using the DDT. No one was using just a suplex because everyone was using a brainbuster or a jackhammer or whatever it was. So I sort of scaled it back, and then, because that's what I've always loved, that classical style of wrestling. I think probably me more so than some of the other people in EPW, because when I chat to a lot of the people in the locker room, 1, based on age, and 2, just based on being able to get access to wrestling in Australia, a lot of them sort of got into wrestling in the Attitude Era and the Ruthless Aggression Era, when, it was a bit flashier and whatnot. Whereas I started being a wrestling fan in the 80s, when you watched a match, you saw a backbreaker and a suplex and a nice snug punch and a DDT. So to me, that was always real wrestling. And I'd watch guys that would chain and do technical wrestling, and that was always real wrestling. And when I thought about how I wanted to change, I was having a conversation with a few people, and they said, well, what do you want to do? How do you want to be different? And I said, well, I just want to get down to being, real wrestling and doing real wrestling. And that's where the moniker came from, because I just sort of looked at, take all the frills away. If you just train someone up just to be very technically proficient and be a wrestler without all the frills and gimmicks and all that sort of stuff, what would you get and what would they do? And that's what I did.
And it obviously works.
Yeah, it works for me. I think by being not boring, but more basic, and scaling it back and just executing those things well, I made myself stand out and be different. Because, I'm pretty confident that I'm never, ever going to botch a DDT or a neck breaker. Because my execution is always nice and clean because I drill this stuff a lot. I mean, I'm 13 years in, I still train 4 days a week, but also because it's, it's stuff that I don't have to go to someone before a match and go, look, I just need to give you a quick 30-minute tutorial on how you take my move. I say suplex and they go, oh, yep, I know what that is. Actually, I don't even have to tell them. You grab any wrestler who's had a match before, you hook them up, you put their arm over your head. They know what's coming and they know how to take it. So it's that universal language of wrestling. And I think that keeping that universal language, you can still write really nice stories with it.
I remember when, I think it was when I first came up here, I was talking about, do you guys know how to run the international? Like, what's an international? I'm like, okay, obviously that's not something that's, yeah. And another one was, I think it was there was a Pierce seminar, and he was talking about, he goes, put me in a hammerlock, I'll give you the Iggy, and they're like, what's an Iggy? So it's like, there's all these little words.
Yeah, there's a few of those things. I mean, I was sort of similar. When I first broke in, the international was called the universal, but, it's just a matter of semantics, same thing. But yeah, there's, it's funny. It's, different schools that you go to will have their own sort of Bibles that they go by, golden rules that you must never not do, or things that you must do every time. And then you go to a different school and then those rules kind of change. We try and tell our trainees that there's no right and wrong when it comes to wrestling. There's a few 100%, like line in the sand, and that's mainly down to safety. Yeah. But everything else is kind of up to interpretation. It's not like there's a worldwide governing body that tells you how you have to do it and whatnot. Even just something as simple as running the ropes, I've seen 8 or 9 different variations on that. So the main thing is just making sure that if you're going to do it well, and do it safely. Yeah,
that's it. Safety is the main issue, really. I've lost my train of thought what I was going to ask you because you threw me with that. But that's why, that's what I was going to say. That's why I think it is important too. Like if you get the chance to experience different schools, because then you get to pick and choose. Like you would have done it when you went to Sydney. You probably went down a couple of days earlier to do some PWA classes and all of that, because and you probably picked up maybe 1 or 2 things you could take back to EPW and say, this is what these guys are doing. That was pretty cool.
100%. That, like, it's no coincidence that when I started doing those trips over to New South Wales coincides with when my career really, I'm not going to say it took off because I'm not this massive big deal or anything like that, but I started to get noticed a bit more, and I started to have a lot more success in EPW shortly after I won the Coastal title and the EPW title. And then I basically got myself from being a mid-card tag team comedy guy to being a main event guy within a year and a half. And I put a lot of that down to my travels over East and training at schools like PWA and Nui Pro. Every time I go to New South Wales, I make sure I go for at least a week. And then I train every day at one or both of the schools, because there's so much that I can learn. Anytime I go anywhere, I want to train over another school. I've trained at schools in Adelaide. I've trained at schools. I came down and did the seminars in Queensland. And I'm really keen to get across to Queensland again and check out some of the schools there. There's just so much that you can learn. And anytime someone comes to town and they're running a seminar, I'm putting my hand up, I'm opening my wallet and I'm paying for it, because I know there are people that, I've been wrestling 10 years, I know how to wrestle, I'm not going to pay for a seminar. Like, you can learn from absolutely anyone. When Robbie Eagles was in town, 100% I was going to be going to his seminar. There's so many lessons that can be learned, and the more you learn and the more people you learn from, the more varied and robust your wrestling is. A lot of the guys that I idolized and that I wanted to be like when it came to wrestling, by the time I got to training, were people like your Jerichos and Malenkos and Benoits and Guerreros, those sorts of guys, the ones who spent some time in Mexico, spent some time in Japan, spent some time in America. So they picked up all these different styles. And Australia is almost like that, in that we've got different styles from state to state. I would say that the PWA and New South Wales style is different to the WA style for sure. And it's different again to the Victorian style. So going to those different schools and picking up different bits and pieces, some of the things that I picked up in PWA and brought back over here weren't seen by our audiences over here. So they were like a breath of fresh air, and even just psychology ideas and those sorts of things, and ways to approach things. So training as many places as you can under as many people as you can is always a fantastic idea. Every time I do a seminar or go somewhere, I try and jot down at least one thing that I'm going to take away from that forever. In 2014, a bunch of us went over for a WrestleMania trip, and every town we went to, I tried to make sure I found a wrestling school. So we were in Vegas for 3 days, and I found out that Mike Modest, of all people, was running a training school in Vegas. So we went along, and I learned 3 really cool leg takedowns that I'd never seen before, and a really good hint on how to make sure the photographer never gets a bad photo of you. So just, okay, that was worth the price of admission. I trained with a guy named Cedric the Hitman at the Championship Wrestling from Hollywood school, and just learned something that helped improve the presentation and the execution of my headlock. So, and I've been wrestling 5 years by this point, and I, improved my headlock by going to train with someone else. So you're never done learning this. The day you're done learning, just hang up your boots.
Yeah. Well, even as I've been watching wrestling for, would have to be nearly or just over 30 years now. And there's always something that I will learn from just watching like a match, even if it is like an old NWA match or an old Sportatorium match, or even just the new stuff. Like, I think I said it the other day I can't remember who it was I was talking to, but Darby Allin, he does that pin where he puts the guy into almost a figure 4 with his legs, and then rolls him up from that, the straight leg.
Sure.
So you go straight leg and rolls him up from there. I'm like, that is a brilliant kick out. Yeah. And it's something I haven't seen it. For 30 years I've been watching wrestling. I haven't seen that. There's always something new you can learn. And being that I'm a manager and I've dabbled in booking and all of that sort of thing, I'm huge on learning as much theory behind psychology and all of that as possible. It's half the reason why I do these, is because I'll always learn a little something off people, whether it be this or that, or what not to do, or what maybe I should try, or just ideas. Yeah. And it's something that, like you said, I don't think I'll ever stop learning, and I don't think I'll ever think that I know everything, because as soon as you do that, you stop getting better. I think anyway.
Exactly. 100%. You need to be a lifelong learner in this business, and you need to be able to change and evolve as the business changes and evolves as well. But that doesn't mean just looking at what your contemporaries are doing, because there is 100 years of history, and it's an absolute gold mine. Some of the stuff in the past there is absolutely just ripe for the, not for the picking and taking and necessarily ripping it off, but just for inspiration, or even just finding out the history behind some moves will make them make a bit more sense to me, or the way that it used to be applied or whatnot. Just little things like that, just different, like I said, different grips and a headlock and whatnot. There's so much out there, and there are probably 1 million of us wrestlers out there in the world, and we need to make sure that we stand out and make ourselves look different from the pack in some way, shape, or form. And looking to the past and seeing who's done it before us and who's done it well, and even looking at the past and seeing who hasn't done it that well, can help us learn lessons all the time. But I don't believe there's anyone who has achieved wrestling nirvana and can never be taught another lesson ever again, except maybe Shawn Michaels.
Well, I still go back maybe once a year, or probably even earlier than that, and I'll watch in chronological order old WCW Saturday nights.
Yeah.
From that sort of thing, or Clash of Champions from #1. And so many times where they've gone, we need to finish for this match, and I'll pitch something and it's really good. They did it back in blah blah blah. None of these guys will have seen it, so it's fine. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, you can recycle stuff if it's old enough and it's obscure enough.
Yeah, and you can recycle them if you can adapt them. Do you know what I mean? This is what they did. Let's do this slightly different, but gets us the same result.
Yeah.
One thing that you really do excel at, and that is your promo. How much do you work at that? Like at EPW, do they train promos a lot, or is it more like, because I noticed up here especially, it's sort of like, oh, here you've got blah, here you need a promo about this, and they just don't know what they've never really been taught how to promo. They get taught all the moves, and then they don't get taught how. Well, in my mind, it's always been, well, that's part of the moves. That's part of your move set. That's a tool to use. So is that something that you guys work on? Because I know having someone like you being able to help them, that must help them immensely.
Sure. It is something that definitely I know that we've got basically a group chat for all of our different trainers at EPW. We're all focused on different things. So at the moment, I'm with the rookies. So we're basically working on the mechanics of wrestling, whereas David Storm is taking the intermediates. So he's finishing off most of his classes these days with a drill that he came up with, or at least adapted from someone else, called the hot seat. And basically it's like a press conference where you sit at the front and people ask you questions and you've got to answer them as your character, as who you are. And it just gets you comfortable being able to live that. I've always been a firm believer in that no one's going to believe a word coming out of your mouth if you don't believe it yourself. So you need to understand who you are. I could write an amazing monologue and give it to someone, and then they can try and recite it. But if they don't believe it, if they don't feel it, it's not going to work. So I try and really. It's really, really hard. It's a hard thing there are mechanical things that you can teach in it, and you can give little pointers about timing and beats and those sort of things. It is hard though, because some people have it and some people don't. I try and really help out as much as I can. I try and I posted a question on our training page when we went down into lockdown again, and I was just curious. I just said, "Hey, why do you wrestle?" And someone said, "Oh, yeah, I've loved it since a kid." I'm like, no. Why do you wrestle? Why does that person walk out to the ring, and get beaten up and punched in the face? What are they trying to achieve? Why do they need to win the match? Are they trying to, make a bit of extra money? Do they need the title so that they can prove to their dad that they achieved something? Are they avenging, their brother who was beaten up by a wrestler 30 years ago? Like, why are you wrestling? Because as soon as you know why you're putting your body through this, why you're stepping in there, everything becomes a lot clearer. So it's just being able to put that filter on and be who you are. And then I also, like, for me, it's weird. When I used to be the shoot fighter, I could not, I don't know why, I just could not cut a shoot fighter promo until I put my headgear on, and then I could do it. Currently at the moment, I've got to make sure that I put at least a bit of gel in my hair and I've wet it and slicked it a little bit. Otherwise, I can't, particularly because when I'm usually filming, I can see myself back. I'm like, that's not Gavin. That's not what he would look like. So, it is a big part. And it's kind of like it's coming back a bit, but it is a bit of a lost art form, the way to be able to actually talk someone into the building. And it's hard because there's two schools of thought. Some people, they say, fans don't want characters anymore because they know the deal with wrestling and they don't want their intelligence insulted and those sorts of things. So I'm just going to be me. My character's just going to be me. I'm like, well, I wouldn't pay to see you.
Yeah.
Because
who's paying $20 to see?
You're just a person. Unless you're a naturally amazingly charismatic person, I don't care. I need protagonist, I need antagonist, I need a reason to care about the outcome of this match, because I watch hundreds of matches a week, and what makes yours different to someone else's? But I think it's more than just the promo. We really try, particularly with our intermediate class, really try and drill into that. You don't just have a character for the promo and then you have your match. It's throughout. It needs to be ingrained throughout in everything you do. Every single choice you make is going to be informed by that. So, yeah, it's a lot of people do come to me for advice for those sorts of things. They'll send their promos through to me and ask for a bit of advice on how they can fix it and change it and whatnot. And those that come to me, I'm more than happy to help out with it. In the past, we've done specific promo classes and whatnot. And it's something that I'm thinking about not bringing in as a separate session, but maybe starting to tack on to the end of one of my sessions so that we can have a bit of a go at it and just get those repetitions in. And for me, myself, I'm that guy that as I'm driving to work, I'll turn the radio off and I'll just start cutting promos on anyone or anything, or the guy who just cut me off in traffic or whatnot. And I'm just constantly just trying to train that muscle and train that muscle and train that muscle, because it's like anything else. Once you get the reps and once you get comfortable doing it, I know of some schools in America where everyone has to cut a 2-minute promo before they leave at the end of class. And if you train 3 days a week, then you're cutting 3 promos a week. So all of a sudden you're cutting 150 promos a year. So when someone goes, red lights on, give us a promo, it's not nerve-wracking. It's not this weird new experience. Because I want to care about the reason for matches. That's what talking gets them in the building. Wrestling gets them to come back, hopefully. So you need to be able to, craft a story and whatnot. And I've always really admired those people that can do that. And it's something that I've worked really hard at. I go back and watch some of my earlier ones and I cringe pretty hard. But I guess it's as long as you believe what you're saying, other people will believe what you're saying as well. And whenever I talk, I 100% believe exactly what I'm saying.
Yeah, for that 2 minutes or whatever, I believe exactly what I'm saying when I'm cutting my promos. Yeah, it's exactly right. The funny thing is, and you mentioned like you turn your radio off and you cut a promo. I was watching the A&E documentary on Rowdy Roddy Piper.
Right.
And he had a notebook where he would see a line or something and write it down. I do the same thing in my phone. And to hear that, to see that and hear like, well, shit, I must be doing something right if I'm doing the exact same thing that he's doing. And he's Roddy Piper. He's Roddy Piper.
Yeah, I am. The way in which I deliver a promo has kind of evolved. I remember I thought that it's kind of like an analogy for wrestling, I guess. I kind of thought that the moves matter, the words matter. It has to be the exact right words. So if ever they said, "Oh, can you come in and cut a promo for us?" I'd spend a week writing it out perfectly and rehearsing. And then, of course, you get halfway through, I flubbed that word. I've got to start again. And then I went, well, if I don't have a script, then I can't get the script wrong. So now what I'll do is I'll just have some dot points on a post note just off the side of the camera. And now it's not even that. It's just, like I said, if I'm not even going to bother switching the camera on unless feel like I've got something to say. So I'll sit there and I'll think about the reality situation. And if there's something that I truly need to say, that I released a promo a couple of weeks ago, there was no need for it. There was no reason for it. I was sat and I was deep in thought a week after my match with Marcus Pitt. And I just had some stuff I wanted to get out. So I just turned the camera on and I just hit roll. And then when I was done, I didn't even bother chopping the start and the end. I just put it out into the ether and see what happens.
I like throwing something that makes people think that maybe I'm shooting. Do you know what I mean? Because it's almost like that. It's almost like that thing where people watch wrestling and they go, well, that's all fake, but that would have hurt. That's all. You know what I mean? I want them to watch a promo and just go, oh, well, he's just trying to talk, but I know he meant something when he said that. It's
like when you go to the magic show, you want to leave and go, that was all bullshit, but
I don't know how he did that.
That was maybe magic's real. Yeah, that's the art of it. That's the I got him. Yeah, that's the beautiful part.
I was going to say, is that sort of thing what drew you to wrestling? Is it that sort of, because that for me that's what it is. It was the stories. It was the emotion. That's what continues to draw me to wrestling, and it's probably why I get so mad when I see it not happening.
Yeah. It's hard. The spectacle of it first drew me to wrestling because, I was 4 years old in 1988 at the height of like Hulkamania. So larger than life characters. And I've always loved action and action movies and that sort of stuff. So that drew me to it. I guess the biggest thing that kind of was the escapism for me because I have been a very small human being for my entire life. And a lot of people have, kind of taken advantage of that or looked past or looked over me because of that. So being able to escape into this world where I can become larger than life has been fantastic. Because sometimes you're dealt your lot in life, and that's where you are and whatnot. So this allows me to step out of where I am and be wherever I want to be whoever I want to be. But yeah, just the feeling of tugging at someone's heartstrings or being drawn into a story and really, really wanting this person to win or really, really wanting this person to lose. It's amazing, and it's so cathartic as well. And when you engage in these people, when you attach your hopes and dreams to these people, when they succeed, you succeed. When they fail, you fail. It's the greatest thing about sport as well. We won the grand final. You didn't do anything. You were sitting on the couch, but you're such a part of that. And I mean, sometimes you watch the grand final and it'll be a 150-point blowout. And you're like, well, yeah, we won, I guess. Yeah, that was great. But in wrestling, we have the ability to give these really rich, amazing stories that sometimes make you want to scream, sometimes make you want to laugh, sometimes make you want to cry. And while you're watching that, or while you're in the ring doing it, if you have that privilege, everything else is gone. Everything else from your life disappears. No matter what you're going through, it's gone. So those people that buy a ticket to come watch me wrestle, no matter how shitty their day has been, or their week, or their month, or their year, for 2 hours, they forget about that and they get to escape through watching me and my peers do what we do. And that's an amazing thing to me. I mean, I always grew up being a huge fan of movies and drama and that sort of stuff. When I was little, I've wanted to be a stuntman or an actor. But this is kind of, the melding of the two. But being able to sway people's emotions and do that and get them to laugh or get them to cry or get them to cheer or get them to boo is it's a really fantastic feeling. And you're allowing someone to feel emotion, and too often people aren't allowed to feel emotion. So not only allowing them to feel emotion, but encouraging them to do that is a pretty wonderful feeling, and probably my favorite part of being a wrestler.
Well, I reckon we're going to leave it there, mate, because I can't think of a better way to end it than that sort of that sort of
No worries.
twitch. For those that want to follow you on Instagram, Facebook, all of that deal, how can they do that, mate?
Cool. So on Facebook, it's Gavin McGavin. On Instagram, it is at Real Wrestling AUS, and on Twitter, it's at Real Wrestling AU. But by the time you put in Real Wrestling, you'll find me anyway. So yeah, there. And then wrestler merch, I've got a page there. I've got a Big Cartel page for some other merch there as well. But yeah, any of those places you can find me. I
will say shirts are top notch. I love some of those designs you've come out with over the time. I'm like, that's a good one.
Yeah, I'm just about due for a new one, I think. But at the moment, the old yellow line ones are selling pretty well. There's a few others that I've got some ideas for, but we'll wait and see how they go.
What we're going to do now is normally when we do these things, like watch-alongs, we'll do them and add them to the episode here. What we're going to do is we're going to record the episode with the match separately. I'm going to release that on the Friday. So for now, you're going to head to me saying goodbye to you. But on Friday, you get to see the match. We're going to see what was the matches. Pro Wrestling Darwin, you and David Storm in the first round of was it the Super 6 series, Super Triad series?
Super Triad series.
There we go. I knew it was something like that.
That's the one, yeah.
So
excellent. I'm really looking forward to watching that one.
Yeah, so do tune into that one on Friday. But until then, thank you so much, Gavin.
No worries. Thank you.
Once again, big thanks to my guest, Gavin McGavin. Be sure and tune in on Friday for this match with David Storm that we're gonna have a watch along for, because really, really good match. Well, not a really, really good match, but a good story behind that match. And you'll see, I guess, when you watch it on Friday. Big thanks also to Pro Wrestling Darwin for letting us have the footage to do this match. Thank you very much to those guys. I can't remember off the top of my head the guy's name I talked to, but thank you so much for letting us use the footage, mate. If you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to WRA. It's free. You can do it on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, or anywhere you get your podcast from. If you do go by Apple Podcasts, give us a 5-star. Helps us get inside more ears and share the word about professional wrestling in this country. Also, make sure you like us on Facebook, the Wrestle Radio Australia, and on Twitter at Wrestle Radio AU, and me personally at Beast Eastman. If you want to support the local industry, please subscribe to one of the many streaming services, or as many as you can. Your favorite streaming service, I guess. Please subscribe to that if you can. PWA also on Fight as always. EPW have one on their, I think it's EPW On Demand. I'll try and find it and I'll put the link in the description of the show. So go into, because there is a lot of the shows up now. Great quality. You're going to see some great matches from a lot of the best workers going around the country today. If you want to support the wrestlers themselves, go to wrestlermerch.com. Gavin's got his shirts up there. A lot of people around the country, a lot of wrestlers around the country now have their shirts up on that site. It's a great way to support the wrestlers themselves, and it's a great way for them to be able to make a little bit of revenue out of it, so they can improve the stuff, their presentation for you guys, I guess. So you buy a couple of shirts, and they can afford to buy a new pair of tights or a new ring jacket, or because I'm guessing that the ring jackets that Gavin wears probably don't come cheap. So support him by buying some shirts, and some of Gavin's shirts are really good. Actually, I really do enjoy. I think I say it on the show. I enjoy the designs that Gavin does come up with for his shirts. So please do go and support those guys. No real way to support us aside from redbubble.com. You go there, search out Wrestle Radio Australia. Anything you buy from that with Wrestle Radio Australia on it, the profits from that go to Beyond Blue and Gotcha for Life. There are two charities that we really do support here at Wrestle Radio Australia. Men's health and mental health issues and all of that sort of thing. And if you heard Views from the East, you know what I'm talking about. That is it for this episode of Wrestle Radio Australia. Of course, we are back on Friday with the watch along with Gavin McGavin for the match against David Storm at Pro Wrestling Darwin. So until then, this is Todd Eastman, and we'll see you on Friday.
This big busy 23 got me feeling way too sweet. Yeah. Too sweet, put your fangs up. Too sweet, pour another cup. Let's be busy 23.